Before My Heart Gives Out by Kira 18 on AO3. Chapter 5 For a Rainy Day. Izuku walked back from his afternoon shift, Amaraku. He was honestly beat. The cafe was packed today, and the amount of focus he had to put in just to do a simple task was frankly exhausting. Luckily, Miss Eleanor seemed to pick up on his discomfort and gave him the rest of the day off. Sometimes he felt like the woman could see right through him. He was passing under one of the road's bridges when all of his senses seemed to flare up. His instinct screamed at him to dodge, to move, to run. He leaped out of the way just as a huge body of slime emerged from the manhole cover that led to the sewers below. The monster screamed as he lunged in his direction. A size M invisibility cloak, just my luck. The slime villain cooed darkly as he approached the teen. In one swift motion, Izuku disconnected his walking stick into his two Esmeralda sticks, swishing one of them in his hands. Menacingly, he looked straight at the sludge villain, daring him to come any closer. The monster seemed taken aback slightly by the teen's behavior, but didn't seem to think much of it as he proceeded to lunge forward. Izuku took in every detail he could. The vibrations around them informed him about the villain's physical mutation. The man in front of him was made solely out of sludge, except there was one point of weakness. Taking in the form and acting on it, Izuku took in every detail he could get. The vibrations around them informed him about the villain's physical mutation. The man in front of him was made solely of sludge, except there was one point of weakness. Taking the information and acting on it, Shadow leaped at the monster, twisting in midair and landing right on top of him. His Esmeralda rod pierced something more solid than sludge, yet not quite. His mind proving that he had just pierced the man's eye. The villain screeched in agony, howls and pleads going on deaf ears. Izuku was about to deal with the man with a finishing blow when another manhole cover blew up. "Do not fear, I am here." The booming voice of the number one hero resounded through the dark walls of the tunnels, vibrating the structure they were standing on. Izuku couldn't help the flinch that overtook him. The man was just so loud. He watched as the hero apprehended the villain with swift and fast movements, quickly encasing the sludge villain in a couple of stray bottles he found. Once upon a time, Izuku would have been a stuttering mess by now. His childhood idol was standing right in front of him after all. However, his fanboy attitude had mellowed out over the years. Nonetheless, this didn't mean his respect for the number one hero lessened. On the contrary, his respect and admiration for the hero had only increased as he got acquainted with the difficulties that came with saving lives. Done with his villain takedown, All Might finally turned towards him. "I saw what you did, young man, and may I say that the way you handled yourself was exemplary. You managed to find the villain's weakness and you took advantage of it, all while making sure he didn't get to you." The hero praised. Each word he uttered would vibrate the strings in Izuku's heart. "Oh, no, I only did what I thought was right to survive," he mumbled quietly, making sure that his Erasmus rods were safely turned back into his red walking stick. He couldn't help but feel dazed. Here he was, standing in front of the symbol of peace, and he was actually getting praise. "Well, may I ask you a question, young—" The hero paused. It took Izuku a second to realize what the man was asking for. "Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya." He replied quickly, red already engulfing his face as he blushed in embarrassment. "Well, young Midoriya, are you by any chance blind?" The hero asked, nothing but curiosity in his tone. "Yes, I am." Izuku waited for the laugh, the mocking of any kind. It never came. "Even more impressive!" All Might exclaimed his surprise, earning himself a gasp from the teen. "With your skills, young Midoriya, I have no doubt that you'll make a great hero." That was everything Izuku wanted to hear, wasn't it? Yet, it filled him with nothing but dread. His idol believed in him, thought he'd make a great hero. However, Izuku could never be a hero, could he? It was a dream he'd let die years ago, along with any hope of ever having a normal life. His dreams shattered the day his mother died, the day he turned blind, and he learned about his inevitable death. Hearing someone tell him he could be a hero was like giving him hope, only to rip it away a moment later. The lung in his air. What? What the fuck? Hearing someone tell him he could be a hero was like giving him hope, only to rip it away a moment later. Hearing someone tell him he could be a hero was like giving him hope, only to rip it away a moment later. The air in his lungs seemed to be sucked out abruptly, his heart drumming in his rib cage, making him think that it will only burst out at any second. The ringing in his ears increased, as his mind screamed at him to go. He couldn't take it anymore. I'm sorry. I have to go. I'm sorry, but I can never. Not a hero, no. He stammered in his haste to gather his items before he took off running, ignoring the calls coming from the older hero. Toshinori didn't know what to make of the encounter he had with the green-haired boy. He had arrived at the scene expecting to fight a villain and defend a scared civilian, yet what he witnessed made him pause. In front of him, he watched as a blind teenager took on a villain single-handedly, fighting him with calculated and efficient movements. It was impressive, to say the least. However, the crestfallen expression the kid wore after he mentioned his potential in the heroics career made him pause. He knew the moment he saw the kid's change in demeanor that he had said something wrong. But what was it? In all his previous run-ins with fans or even heroes, people would beam at any encouragement he gave. So why did young Midoriya react that way? From just a few seconds, he knew the kid had potential. The kid was blind, for Pete's sake. He can't even imagine the amount of work the teen must have put in to acquire such efficient combat skill. All Might just hopes that whatever the kid's reasons were, that he would register. Their society needed people with drives such as his after all. 2 days later. The rain bore down menacingly upon the heart of Masutafu, pouring on rooftops and turning the streets into a den of silt, stone, and muddy waters. It was at times like these Aizawa regretted getting out of bed in the morning. He, gruffly, left the warmth of his living room couch and the coziness of his yellow sleeping bag in order to go to his night patrol. Now jumping from roof to roof, slightly limping, and utterly exhausted from his previous encounter with a villain, he promised himself a nice and long bath once he got back home. However, his plans were ruined when a figure slammed into him, sending him toppling onto one of the dark alleys below. He cursed himself for his moment of distraction. Years of experience had taught him to stay always on guard. Yet, the villain still managed to surprise him. For the last 2 days, Izuku had immersed himself in his vigilante work, not even getting any rest as he tried to get his mind off of his encounter with the #1 hero. It was days like these, though, that he enjoyed going out. It was pouring, and the cold made the hair on his back stand on end, but he didn't care. It was there, under the rain, that the world seemed to be the clearest. The vibrations coming off from each and every raindrop made his image that much sharper, giving him the resemblance of sight. The cold he would surely get afterwards was worth it. Hearing some kind of scuffle coming from one of the nearby alleys he was passing, he expected to find some kind of robbery or mugging. What he didn't expect, however, was to find a man towering over an oddly familiar form. The figure's heartbeat belonged to none other than the man that had been chasing him for about a year now. Blaring alarms shot up in his mind as he registered the slow and dimmed heartbeat, followed by the shallow breathing of the hero. The villain raised his hand. Izuku could make some sort of mutation. The arm was in the form of slinker, sharp and piercing, and it was aimed straight for the fallen hero's heart. Before he could even think twice about it, he charged forward, going straight for the towering figure. He could barely smell the remnants of some kind of substance on the man's body. Previous experience informed him that the smell belonged to a scorpion's venom. This was Sting, the infamous villain that had been shaking the underground world for a while now. The man was known for his mutation quirk, Scorpion. It gave him the properties of a highly lethal scorpion. The mutated quirk was probably the reason why Eraserhead couldn't erase his quirk, Izuku noted. The man's heartbeat was erratic, and if the blatant smell of blood coming from the man's body was any indication, Eraserhead seemed to have been putting up a good fight despite the clear disadvantage. This was all the information Izuku needed. He instantly aimed for the place where the man seemed to bleed the most, ramming his leg into the man's side with a force to rival that of an angry Roo. He quickly went in for another hit to the man's stomach. The force of the blow, making the man yell in both agony and surprise, and being caught off guard. Izuku dodged as a kick was aimed towards him. They kept it up for who knows how long. The villain was stubborn. Izuku would give him that. They were both getting tired. The man swiped at Izuku's arm. He hissed in pain as he felt the stinger pierce his skin. Stinging seemed to have run out of venom. His senses changing no trace of the substance, which was a huge relief for the Vigilante. This, however, did not lessen the pain that flared in his abused dependent. At first, when he was still learning to control his powers, a cut like that would have been enough to make him drop to his knees. His senses were so heightened that even his pain receptors were working on overload. Even the slightest brush of fabric against his skin would hurt like he was being pricked by 1,000 needles. Luckily, Roo had trained him to control his senses and prevent himself from getting too overwhelmed. He could still feel the pain, though. He retaliated with a punch to the man's throat. It was a dirty move, and he knew that, but years of experience had taught him that, in a fight, he needs to use everything to his advantage. The man stumbled backwards, the air knocked out of him. Izuku took the opening he provided to deal a finishing blow to the back of the villain's head, effectively knocking him out. After doing quick work of calling the detective and tying the villain to one of the nearby poles, he made sure to leave a small note addressed to the detective. With that done, he quickly made his way to the fallen figure of the underground hero, sighing in relief as he heard the man's pulse. It was faint, but it was still there. He assessed the man's wounds, using his power to find the source of both the smell and the cause of each injury. It seemed that Eraserhead had taken a harsh blow to the head and was stabbed in the side. There was what looked like a big puncture wound in the place of where he sensed the blood. He hoped that sting didn't poison his stinger. Still, hope wouldn't get him anywhere. With practice eased, he wrapped the man's head with bandages he carried in his utility belt. To his horror, the hero chose that moment to wake up. The man groaned, his head lolling to the side as he tried to move, to stand up, to fight, Izuku realized. It's okay, Eraserhead. It's okay. You're safe. You need to stop moving. You're hurt. Izuku reassured softly. Even heroes needed saving sometimes. What? Shadow? The hero asked in disbelief. His features were scrunched up in pain, as if he was fighting a losing battle with his consciousness. Look, I need you to stay with me, okay? The medics will be here soon. Making sure to put pressure on the man's side, he easily lifted him up. Taking care of being as gentle as he could, he carried the man bridal style. Eraserhead groaned in protest, trying and failing to move out of Izuku's grip. You need to trust me. I think that you were stabbed by stinger that was poisoned. The medics won't be getting here soon enough. We need to meet them halfway. He could hear the distant sounds of the sirens coming their way. He needed to take him to them fast. If what he gathered about Stinger was true, the man had about half an hour before the venom took its full effect, making sure to not aggravate his wounds. He ran to the front road. Distant sounds of sirens could be heard. His mind was running 100 miles per second. The heartbeat of the hero in his arms was slowly fading. The venom was rapidly taking effect. They were running out of time. A hand on his shoulder startled him. He turned away sharply. fight-or-flight instinct taking over as his adrenaline slowly faded. He was met with the piercing gaze of Detective Tsukauchi. The man seemed to be torn, looking quickly from Izuku to the man in his arms. Izuku assumed that he was deciding whether it was worth it to arrest him here. Look, Detective, Eraserhead is dying. We could continue our very fun game of cat and mouse some other day, but right now, we need to act fast. There's poison in his system from Stinger's attack, and I don't know how much time he has left. Izuku didn't even care that his voice modifier was turned off at the moment, nor did he care for the fact that his voice was so obviously in panic. The detective's eyes softened as he wordlessly gestured for the medical cart that was stationed just a few feet away from them. Izuku quickly handed the limp body to the hero of the EMT, relief flooding his system as he saw the hero finally getting the medical attention he needed. He turned to leave, but the path was cut off by the detective. He cursed himself for believing he'd get a free pass. Tsukauchi seemed to mull something over, however. What he said next made his heart stutter in shock. Thank you, Shadow, the man said, sincerely. They were simple words, but to Izuku, who had been fighting and trying his best for years, while being heavily criticized and pursued because of it, it meant the world. Masking his shock with a huff, he smiled at the detective, the motion earning him a scuff. He quickly made his exit, running back into the alley and into the cover of the darkness of the night. What he didn't notice, though, was a shock expression coming from the EMT that had made contact with him. Tsukauchi wasn't having the best night. His day started with his usual routine, boring paperwork, and the usual back and forth at the precinct. However, that all changed when he got a sudden phone call. On the other end, he could hear heavy breathing. The person seemed distressed, yet strangely focused and professional. His worry skyrocketed when the individual asked for a couple of officers and an ambulance. He quickly informed him about the incident, giving little to no details, yet setting blaring alarms in Tsukauchi's mind. The guy mentioned having saved Aizawa from Sting, and even managed to win against the villain in a fight. This in itself was an impossible task to accomplish, since the villain had been on the loose for weeks now, yet the person had mentioned it as an after detail. He had focused on getting help for the underground hero. The call ended as Tsukauchi suited up to go to the scene. Time was running out. Aizawa was injured, and he had a villain to arrest. To his surprise, the individual was revealed to be none other than the infamous Vigilante, Shadow, the kid that had them chasing their tails for 2 years now. The Vigilante seemed on high alert. He spoke in a hurried and desperate tone. The thoughts of arresting the Vigilante right there and then crossed his mind, yet seeing the way the kid held on to the worrying limp form of Aizawa, as if his life depended on it, he decided that leaving him be for now would be okay. The kid had saved Aizawa after all. Without him, the underground hero would be dead right now. His mind couldn't even wrap around the idea yet of Shadow, after everything the man had accomplished, being nothing more than a child. Tsukauchi couldn't believe it. However, the man's voice was proof enough. His heart clenched as he heard the crack in the Vigilante's voice. It was the voice of a scared child. He was still going to try his damn hardest to arrest the kid later. Nonetheless, he made sure to thank the Vigilante before the kid took off. He turned around, his mind set on going to the hospital. However, in front of him was an EMT. Detective, was that Shadow? The woman asked, worry clear in her tone. Yes, it was. What's wrong? The EMT lowered her gaze to the ground, many emotion flashing through her expression. Finally, as she regained her composure, she looked up, her gaze solemn. It's just my quirk. It allows me to see people's status, vitals, and medical statuses. She paused, looking towards the empty space where stood the Vigilante mere moments ago. Shadow, he's dying.
Why am I crying? He's dying. I know he's dying. Why am I crying? Kira, I swear. I swear. Why am am I crying? Okay. Okay, compose myself. I'm gonna go over notes now. So, I want to talk about the fact that I got a comment last chapter, yesterday, where it's like, haha, can't wait for you to read chapter 17. What's in chapter 17? I'm scared now. I'm scared. This is like the banana fish thing all over again, because everyone's like, oh, you know, wait till you get to the last 2 episodes, wait till you get to the last 2 episodes, right? I'm like, what's gonna happen? No. What do you mean? What? No, you can't do this to me. And then there was like an episode in between where, not gonna spoil it, another character died. Clearly, because that freaking show is just major character death. But there was a, what's it called? A freaking, death in between the series, and someone's like, oh, watch out for episode blank, which I think was like 10, 11, I don't know, don't quote me on that. I haven't watched it, and that happened like years ago, and I haven't watched it since. This is one of the animes that I have not watched and then rewatched and rewatched, because I don't think I can physically handle rewatching that. But, yeah. And I was like, okay, alright. Now I'm scared. I'm in chapter 5. Chapter 17 is what? Let me check. I'm in chapter 5. Chapter 17 is 12 chapters away. I'm scared. I am scared. Should I be scared? I'm scared. Okay. Okay, I want to talk about All Might and the interaction between Izuku and All Might. So, All Might. So it's... Okay. For those who don't know, I love All Might bashing. Hi, hello. Do I think he's an awful person? No. Do I think he makes a lot of mistakes? Yes. Do I hate him? Yes. I don't think he's a genuinely, evil person. No. I just think that he is a good person who makes a bunch of mistakes, and I hate him for the mistakes he makes, because... I don't know. I just hate him. It's his smile. It's his smile. It's the way he carries himself. It is him as a whole that I hate. No, I just, I don't necessarily hate him. I just kind of dislike him. It's like, do better. Do better. But obviously I want to point out the whole, oh yes, you're blind. Don't worry, you could be a hero. You're quirkless? Yeah, no, you can't be a hero. That, I love that. It doesn't happen in this fic, obviously, or at least not that I know of. Unless. But obviously, the difference, one says, no, if you're quirkless, you can't be a hero. And then the other's like, oh, you're blind? You could be a hero. I love that. I love that. But then again, All Might does see Izuku's fighting abilities. So it's less of, yeah. I feel like if he didn't know that aspect and Izuku just asked, can I be a hero? And him being blind, I feel like All Might probably would have said, no, you cannot, young Midoriya. But yeah, I just wanted to mention on that. I also wanted to mention the whole line of, pulling out hope just for it to be ripped away. And wow, did that line hit me like a truck. I actually had to take a 5-minute break because I started crying there, because I just imagine how Izuku felt. Just imagine you have come to terms with the fact that you can't be a hero, and then someone you idolize, someone who is the #1 hero, who society as a whole views as the symbol and the all-be goal of a hero. He is the staple. He is the standard. He is the best. And for him to tell you, you can be a hero. Well, for others, that would be like, oh my god, amazing, I can be a hero. For him, it's like, I can't. You just shattered my heart all over again. And as much as he wants to, go back into the mindset of, okay, my dream is dead, knowing that the freaking #1 hero, All Might, once told him, you can be a hero, will forever be stuck in his mind, will forever be regurgitating towards his mind, and he will forever have that whole little inner battle of, I can't be a hero no matter what anyone says. Not even All Might can prove that I can be a hero. He said I can be a hero, but I can't, and that is agonizing. And yeah, it's literally just pouring salt into the wound. And that line, as I said, I had to take a 5-minute break because I was sobbing. I was crying. I was a mess. I was a wreck. This fanfic makes me a wreck. I wonder why. I also want to touch upon Rain. I don't know why I thought he probably would have hated Rain because of how loud it probably is. I love Rain. Rain is my favorite, but the whole Rain and it sending out its own vibrations and stuff,
to the point where if it's raining, he can see things pretty much clearly and stuff like that. Not 100%, obviously, but like to an extent, he could practically see again. I love that. I love that so much. It's not even a thought that came crossing my mind, but I love that. I love that. That is so cute. That is amazing. You know? So, for one time, we get an Izuku that doesn't have an we get an Izuku that doesn't have, he does have a considerably high pain tolerance, except it's dulled down thanks to the fact that his pain receptors are so recepting. They're working overload. So I feel like it neutralizes itself. He has a regular pain receptor, or maybe he has more. For all we know. Okay. Izuku, pain tolerance. I just wanted to mention that. I also wanted to ask, does he have a mask? Like, that's what I'm wondering. Does he have a mask? And is it like the daredevil mask where it's like it covers the above the lips and up, like nose and up, but it leaves the mouth open? Or does it cover his whole face? Like, what's the gist there? How does that work? How is that? Now let's get on to the big thing. I thought for a second there that was the moment that Tsukauchi and obviously Aizawa, once he recovers, if he's conscious or if he's not conscious, would find out that, you know, Shadow is, you know, not quirkless. Well, yeah, maybe quirkless, but, blind, right? I thought that was gonna be the moment they find out he's blind, right? It's gonna be like, oh, Shadow, he's blind, and that's why the EMT was so shooketh. No, they find out he's dying. Okay. And I don't know why that line of, Shadow, he's dying, which, by the way, I have a friend named Shadow, and I'm making a podcast with them, which, by the way, I'm still getting. The video for the podcast is completely finished. It is all edited. I'm just having Shadow and Cielo look over it, and see if they wanted to change up, if they wanted me to remove a certain part of the video or stuff like that. I'm basically just communicating with them since I am one of their editors, and by one of them, I mean I'm the only editor. I volunteered for this, I shouldn't complain. No, but I'm just waiting for the response, and then I'm gonna go ahead and post it, and I will make sure to tell you guys. Although the Discord is gonna find out first, because obviously, the Discord, which you should join, link in the description. But as I was saying, I have a friend named Shadow, so this is gonna be, I think that's also why I started crying a little more. Having to read out loud, Shadow is dying, that is something I never thought I would have to read. So, yeah, that's something. That's amazing. But I think that line hits so much more because it's like, okay, I know he's dying, but I'm like, I'm in denial. Somebody in the comments mentioned the first to die, not the first to die at the end. They both die at the end. I hate you. I don't hate you. But I did not need to get reminded. I read that book about like 4 years ago. Yeah, about 4 years ago. And that book broke me. That book broke me. That book tore out my heart. It's just, ugh. The whole time I was in denial too. Like, it's literally just like, hey, the characters are gonna die. The characters are gonna die. Like, there is no, you know, weaving, turning, loopholes. They're gonna die. Both of them. And I'm like, okay, they're gonna die. I'm not gonna get attached. I'm not gonna, you know, cry over their deaths. I got attached. I sobbed. I didn't cry. I sobbed. As for this, I'm already attached to Izuku. I can't just say, I'm not gonna get attached. I'm already attached. I'm already attached. I was fucked from the start. Anyways, as always, my raindrops. Make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.